Wisconsin's first ever state-funded child care program is taking center stage in Fond du Lac today. Department of Children and Family Secretary Jeff Bertle is visiting Jesus' Little Lambs Child Care Center to discuss the new Get Kids Ready initiative, the program designed to provide direct state investment into early education and school readiness.
One of the biggest boons is going to be it's going to make childcare less expensive for families, and that's a huge deal. It also provides some ongoing revenue for the centers and the in-home providers that are going to do this.
Officials say nearly 1,400 providers across the state have already signed up to participate in it. That means as many as 24,000 children could be enrolled in the program for the upcoming school year.